What is going on, everybody? Appreciate you for tuning in. We're back with another edition of the On the Ball podcast. Back with my guy, not guarding the two, guarding the three. Brett, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. A lot of great stuff to talk about. That's for sure.
Yes, we definitely do. I mean, we've got some NBA where a star player has kind of opened the door to a trade. We have the end of the college football playoff. So Brett and I will kind of talk about the first edition of the expanded playoff, tweaks we'd like to see, anything like that. And then we have quite a bit of NFL because we have a divisional round to talk about and looking ahead to championship Sunday, which I know I usually talk about the playoff weekends are really good. I feel like championship Sunday is a great day where you get both the AFC and the NFC title game same day right after each other. I feel like it's great TV because obviously then you find out the Super Bowl matchup. So yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how um, coaching. There's been some news even just like recently, and the NFL execs. Which I gotta be honest with you, I kind of didn't know that they did this, but like at the end of every regular season, they kind of pull some NFL execs who come up with predictions for the offseason. So we'll run through those and see which ones we think are likely and which ones not so likely. But yeah, so with that, let's go ahead and start with college football, where Ohio State won the national championship. They beat Notre Dame last night in a game that it looked like it was going to be a blowout and a bit of a, laugher early on. But, Freeman and Notre Dame made a comeback, made it interesting late. But Ohio State with a late touchdown sealed the deal. Ohio State are your national champions going into next season, which is odd enough because Ryan Day had a lot of pressure going into the playoff because during the regular season, there were some thoughts about Ryan Day possibly being replaced. Obviously, you can't do that because the man is a national champion. So looking at the first season of the expanded playoff, 12 teams, we saw the all the teams that had the bye lost. I know a lot of people were worried about expanding the playoff and, potential matchups you could get. Like you got Ohio State and Notre Dame in the national title game. Like that's as traditional as you can get in college football. So looking back on it, like are there anything that you would tweak about it, or are you fine with how the system kind of is right now?
I'm fine with how the system is right now. You know, the more the merrier.
Hmm.
I saw some people complaining that now they think maybe some of the bigger games don't matter, but at the end of the day, I think 12 teams is perfectly fine. I think if anything, if you want to complain it's too much, I think maybe a number to consider would be 8. I do agree that it needed to be expanded. But at the end of the day, I'm perfectly fine with a 12-team playoff.
I mean, look, I keep saying 16's the number for me, so I'm gonna keep saying it. I think 16 would be perfect. I don't think you need to go any further than that. You know, I guess even if you went 14 like the NFL, where I guess you would give the number one teams maybe the bye only, and then have everybody else play. But I think 16 is perfect. I wouldn't be shocked if that's where they actually ended up in a little bit. I think another tweak I would probably say is the home bye maybe doesn't have to go to necessarily just conference champions. Like if you wanted to do just the four best teams get that home bye, I wouldn't hate that because at least the conference champions would still get in, and maybe with the conference champions for the opening round, if they're playing in it, if you want to give them a bye, maybe I don't know. I mean, not a bye, a home game as well. I wouldn't hate that either, but I think the bye part of it shouldn't just be limited to the conference champions because like I said, all four by teams lost. Whether it was Arizona State, Boise State, SMU. So that might be a tweak that might be more realistic. The 16 team part probably would take some time to get to, but grand scheme of things, I loved it because, like you said, I have been waiting for an expanded playoff for so long, and the fact that we ended up with two big name schools in the title game, I think should ease a lot of the worries that some people had. Because I think some people coming into this worried like you might get like an SMU, I don't know, SMU Oregon
I'll
title
say,
game or something, and watch like Oregon put up 70 on them or something like that.
I'll
Like
say
it
they're
didn't
worried.
happen. Yeah. No,
No,
go
I
ahead.
just want to say they're probably worried again about like the what happened with TCU there when they lost like 65-7, and they just felt outclassed the entire way through.
Right.
Like, I think we can acknowledge that. Of course, there's always going to be some kinks to work on with the college football playoffs, right? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be something to do better, but we should be happy for now that they expanded it, and we'll see what tweaks they make to it in the future. But overall, can't be too mad.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, so obviously, well, before we even move on, appreciate those of you who are tuning in. Make sure to give us a like, follow, or subscribe to Integrity Sports Network, depending on where you are watching from. And we would love to hear from you. So make sure you jump in the chat and give us your opinion on anything we're talking about. If you have anything you want to throw out to us, definitely do that as well. Okay, so like I said, congrats to Ohio State. Congrats to Notre Dame for the season that they had. But let's move on to the NBA. Bradley Beal. There's a lot of talk about Bradley Beal and Phoenix and hey, what's going on, Trajan? Where Phoenix once again not having the greatest season. Once again, everybody's looking at that roster and saying, what can they do to fix it or whatever? Seemingly, the piece that needs to be moved or that the Suns probably would want to move Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal came out, I think yesterday or the day before, and said he's willing to waive his no trade clause for the right situation. Okay, Trajan, I think Trajan knows where I'm heading with this because I saw a three-team deal that's been floated out there, which would land Jimmy Butler in Phoenix, Bradley Beal in Milwaukee, and I guess the Heat would just get some cast-off pieces and maybe picks. So I know. So Trajan let us know how he feels. You as a Bucks fan, what would you feel about Bradley Beal joining this Bucks team?
I think I would rather sign Doc Rivers to a 10-year extension. Um, Here's the thing: when it comes to Bradley Beal, he doesn't. What does he exactly provide for us that we desperately need? Right. When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to Milwaukee, in all reality, what we need is more like wing defense. We need bigger wings to kind of defend on the perimeter. And maybe some more guard defense, right? But even then, we've had guys like Andre Jackson and AJ Green really stepping into their roles and completely thriving.
Yeah.
Bradley Beal brings scoring. The problem is, if I'm Milwaukee, I'm not really dying to add Bradley Beal
Mm-hmm.
because, like, what we're gonna pay 48 million for a guy who needs to dominate the ball. Except we already have Damon Giannis in the starting lineup, so we'd have to move him to the bench. And I am not paying $48 million for a six man. Absolutely not. Bradley Beal needs to go somewhere where he can just dominate the ball and put up buckets, most
Mm-hmm.
likely on a non contending team. But that's really where Bradley Beal thrives. The place he wouldn't thrive, Milwaukee. Absolutely not. So no, I'm not for that.
All right. I don't see the fit either. Like, are you looking for Brad Beal to fill in something that maybe they think Middleton's coming up short just for the scoring? Because you can't be looking at Bradley Beal to add anything defensively. Clearly, you'd just be looking for him to be some offensive punch to a lineup that maybe you think needs it. But once again, I agree with you. I would look elsewhere because one, Bradley Beal hasn't shown he can stay on the court. That's a problem. What's the point of bringing him if he's not going to be available? And two, because of kind of his defensive liability, it's like, will he be a net negative with the Bucks? And my biggest thing with the Bucks has been, I'd rather see them bring in athleticism. Beal doesn't necessarily help in that aspect either. So I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of with Trajan. Like, I would say no to it, but he's looking for the right situation. Trajan says, on his opinion, he'd be okay with the Bucks tearing it down, getting picks, and rebuilding with youth. I can see that as like an offseason type of plan in terms of a rebuild with youth.
That is gonna be our hey, what's up, Jory? Good to see you. That's gonna be our if or when Giannis requests a trade.
Okay.
Not a second before then. If Giannis requests a trade, then yeah, we should just tear it all down and get as many picks as we can. But as long as Giannis is willingly, and wants to be in Milwaukee, we completely owe it to him to try to be competitive every single year he's here. So I agree to an extent, Tragan, but that's only if Giannis requests out. Then just tear it all down and start over.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so I guess you don't think you would see an instance where Giannis kind of sticks through a rebuild in Milwaukee.
No, because he already said he wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's how these trade rumors started, right?
Yeah.
That's why I keep getting the Giannis is getting moved. No, he said if the Bucks, as long as the Bucks remain competitive, he'll be here.
Yeah.
But the second they pretty much try to rebuild on him, he's out.
Yeah.
So all he wants are the Bucks to completely remain competitive. And you know what? This is a guy who's given everything to the franchise. He's not only that, he's giving us another MVP caliber season this year.
Mm-hmm.
When he's on the court, he's giving it his all. So we owe it to him to completely go all in for him, just like he's going all in for us. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Okay. Look, I do think it's interesting with Beal want to waive his no trade clause. I mean, I guess the follow would have to be, what is the perfect situation for Bradley Beal? Is there
you,
one?
the funny part is you would need like a 4 or 5 team trade to get a Bradley Beal trade done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Phoenix Suns just made a trade. They traded their 2030 first pick and pretty much acquired 3 more firsts for it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe now if you send the Miami Heat 3 first and Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler, maybe it happens, or 2 firsts to Miami and 1 to whoever team takes Brad Beal. But that's the only reason I can see the trade they literally just made like a minute ago. Otherwise, it has to be a 3 team trade regardless. You're gonna have to find like Jimmy to Phoenix. I'm not sure exactly what Miami would be gunning for back, but then the third team would have to take Bradley Beal, and it's tough to find the perfect spot for Bradley Beal because again, what what is he looking for? Like,
Mm-hmm.
does he want to put up points? Because we can send him plenty of places where he can put up points.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is if he's like, oh, I'm only waiving a no trade clause for a contender, like where does he what contender does he think is trading for him? So
Right.
I think a perfect situation is send him somewhere where there's like low no pressure at all and he can just go out and hoop. But so like where's the perfect situation for him? I couldn't tell you. Like that's just so tough. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't see like I don't think teams like are the Orlando Magic desperate enough for half court scoring that they make the deal. I don't think so. And their half court offense isn't exactly automatic.
Right. Yeah.
Like I just don't see an actual contender really dying to bring Beal on. So it all comes back down to who is he willing to waive it for? Like, because if it's contender or bust for him, then he's staying in Phoenix.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess with this understanding, with the trade that you just talked about, will Bradley Beal be in Phoenix past the trade deadline this year?
I'm part of me starting to say I think so.
Okay.
Or I think so because Miami doesn't want him. I think maybe this is why they did the trade. If maybe they'll now test see if Miami will take him for three firsts. But yeah, I don't think I think it's either Miami or bust, and I really don't see Miami taking him. And with that no trade clause he has, I don't see who else wants him where he'd actually want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure Charlotte or Detroit or a place like that would take him, but does Beal really want to go somewhere like Charlotte or Detroit? Probably not. So it'll be interesting. I think we're gonna get our hopes up for a big trade, but I think they'll still be in Phoenix after the
Okay.
trade deadline.
Which I mean, look, Detroit. Detroit's doing some things this year. I'd almost be to the point with Detroit where I just let it ride out with this young core and see what the ceiling is. I mean, if I'm Bradley Beal, I don't think Detroit's as terrible of a spot as it used to be. Like if you could play Cade Cunningham and Ivy and some of these guys, why not? Obviously, Detroit would have to give up something, depending on what that is. It might make even less sense to me. But
The funny part is they really wouldn't have. If anything, they would get picks for taking Bradley Beal.
which, hey, like why not? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Bradley Beal, maybe it's something that most likely could happen in the off season. Maybe I think trade deadline, especially with it coming up so quickly. I don't know with a contract like his and like you said, three team deals. I should say takes a lot of work, a lot of moving parts, and I'm sure none of the sides would want to rush into something like this. So I agree. I think he's there past the deadline, and maybe the off season we see something.
Yeah, I agree. I think they probably do try to make the move or sign and trade in the offseason for. I feel like Jimmy Butler's gonna end up in Phoenix. I don't think that's much in doubt for me.
Yeah.
I just think the real question is it going to be now or in the offseason? Because we know Jimmy just wants to get paid, and we know Matt Shiba is going to open up the checkbook for him. He's not afraid to spend money.
Mm-hmm. And my whole thing's been if you swapped out Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler, and let's say they did this today, is Phoenix any better with Butler besides instead of Bradley Beal?
So the answer to that, in my opinion, is they are better, but how
Okay.
much better is the question, right?
Yes.
Because now Jimmy Butler max, if I remember correctly, is like 2 years, 113 million, something like in that neighborhood. So we're looking at like 55 and a half million a year to him, like 50 million a year to Booker, 50 million a year to Durant. If you make this trade, like that's it. You're locked in. This is your core because you're gonna have to send pretty much every single first that you just traded for today. It would all have to go out in the Jimmy Butler trade, and you're left with like seconds, like maybe 1 second. So they have to ask themselves, and this is the part where I'm skeptical. Jimmy, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, are you better? The answer is yes. The real question, are you championship better? Are you better? Let me put it this way. Would you take the Suns or Denver in a series if we swapped out Beal for Durant? Or I mean Beal for Butler?
I mean, Denver does kind of frustrate me. Only because I don't believe in Phoenix, I'd probably still take Denver.
Say, okay, and then would you take them or Dallas?
Dallas has their own issues. Um,
And like
I might be swayed to Phoenix in that one.
See, and that's kind of part of the problem, right? Like
Mhm.
you'd have to say no doubt about it, contenders making that deal.
Right.
But I just named like two like contenders, but are like fringe contenders, and you had to think about it that hard.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention Oklahoma City or Phoenix.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the part that's like would make me like hesitant. Like you're gonna be locked into this core. Like that's it. No more moves to be made. Does this make you a title contender to go all the way or not? And
Right.
then let's say if they make it out of the West, do you pick them over Boston?
No.
You let's say Milwaukee makes it, Phoenix or Milwaukee, 2021 rematch.
No, because I could see Giannis going crazy.
Let's say Phoenix or Cleveland.
I really like Cleveland's makeup, and if Cleveland makes it to a finals, then that means they've gone through uh, all playoffs and improved something. I would take Cleveland.
Yeah, so that's kind of my that's going to be like my final point on this one. It's yes, Jimmy Butler makes the Suns better, but he doesn't make them a title contender. And after that, you're stuck with this non-title contender as they all age and just progressively get worse over the next couple of years. So I really don't like a Jimmy Butler to Phoenix trade that much in all reality.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I completely agree. I think Beal and Butler are two guys who maybe a couple of years ago I might have cared more. Now I just feel like they're two aging stars. Well, Butler's age, Beal, it's like his body's aging, and I don't know if they're as big of a difference maker as a lot of NBA analysts are trying to make them out to be. So I think I think it's a situation like you said where if you traded for them, if you get better, is it marginally better, or is it really enough that you think you could win a title? And if you can't, then why make the move?
It it's that awkward spot where I think they're like a lot better than with Beal, but I also don't think a lot is enough to close the gap between them and like the actual top tier title contenders. So, but we all know they're still going to be aggressively trying to make this trade. So, good
Mhm.
luck, Phoenix. We know it's going to come if this trade goes through. Another 4 years of mediocrity.
Yeah, yeah. Also, before we move on from the NBA, because I was watching Celtics Warriors yesterday, MLK Day, and Reggie Miller kind of slipped in there during the broadcast that he's hearing for All Star Weekend. They're going to do a rematch of Steph versus Sabrina Ionescu. But he also said there's a chance it could be the Splash Brothers, Steph and Clay, versus Sabrina and Caitlin Clark. He kind of just dropped that in there like that wouldn't be a big deal if it happened.
Um,
How much would you want to see that? Steph
I'm,
and Clay versus Sabrina and Caitlin Clark.
if I'm the NBA, I'm opening up the checkbooks and paying Caitlin Clark whatever she wants to come to this 3 point contest. Because that's to me that would be the big money duo, right? That would be viewership right there. Because they teased it last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steph talking about bringing Clay, Sabrina saying she'll bring a friend, and rumors flying that it'd be like Caitlin Clark. But in reality, Caitlin Clark is the most marketable star the WNBA has ever seen. And, Steph Curry, the greatest 3 point shooter of all time. Caitlin Clark, elite 3 point shooter. Sabrina gave him a run for his money last year. Clay Thompson, all time great 3 point shooting. I just think that if the NBA has a chance to book this and they don't, they're just stupid. Because I feel like this is must see TV and it has to happen if you have the chance to book it.
Yeah, I look, and I feel like if Reggie Miller's throwing it out there, he's probably heard some things, and maybe it is a legit possibility, and maybe they're just waiting on like Caitlin Clark to decide or something like that. Which, like you said, hopefully it happens. And then I guess with then introducing that, have you seen any of the I guess, unrivaled league action.
Unrivaled? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, no, that's been a lot of fun. I
because I was
love
about to
the
get you. I was about to ask, like, what do you think about it so far?
I love it. I love the format. I think everything about it right now has been fantastic. So it's great. It's really fast paced. Getting used from 20. They went from a 24 to 18-second shot clock, a little bit of a smaller court. Just overall, a lot of fun. Really fast pace, and it's going to be really interesting to just kind of fun to watch as the season progresses. A lot of great talent in there. We were just talking about Sabrina Ionescu, Angel Reese is in there, Lexi Hull. So overall, I love it, and I can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah, I mean, I caught some of it as well, and I the pace was what I was immediately attracted to. Like it is like straight pickup. Like you score, they're inbounding it right away, and they're going back the other way. And because it's 3-on-3 full court, there's like plenty of space. So yeah, like the players in the WNBA that are gifted offensively, creating their own shot, like they are the ones that this league is perfect for them. And I think also it keeps the WNBA like relevant during the off season because normally at this point a lot of their players are playing overseas. Nobody's really checking in on them until they just come back and it's like, oh, WNBA season started. But now that you have this, all the like you said, a lot of the stars are still here. They're on TV, so it's always in your face. And then when we get to was it May? Is it May that the WNBA season starts?
Yeah.
Like you're kind of still in women's basketball mode. So I think it's a great thing that they're doing, and I have enjoyed it as well. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there just to see kind of what you were thinking about it.
No, fair
And
enough.
yeah, so all right, so now let's hit up these NFL playoffs because you know me, I was glued to the TV, and I know you were as well. Some of these results were interesting. Oh, hold on, Trajan's got a comment here. Honestly, do we really think the Bucks can make a trade that's going to put them over the top? I don't think so. So not with the inconsistent play of everyone else. That's okay. So that's I guess Trajan putting out there that obviously he doesn't feel that they're contenders. He probably thinks they're in that next group. Is there something that they desperately need in order for them to move up into that contending group? And if you know what that is, I guess who's the type of player that they could actually get to fill that need?
Uh, I think the only thing that we could really add that would help us that might be reasonable is maybe we can add like a younger, like more athletic center to back up Brooke so we don't have to run so much Bobby Portis at the 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the team is necessarily that like far off from really contending, like being a contender. But I do think, we have holes like I think the biggest one in all reality is obviously health. That's what screwed us over for 3 years in a row now. So, but if there's one move I'd like to see, I'd love to see us just get a younger, more athletic center to back up Brooke Lopez, so we can just kind of play a more variety on defense rather than always being a drop.
Mm-hmm.
See, I like Trace Jackson Davis. I like where your head's at, Tragan.
Okay. Let's see. Trajan said, I'm in rebuild mode. Honestly, get picks get younger. Damian, what's going on? The Bucks can have the whole. He put Bills, but he meant Bulls roster, which Bucks fans would never sign off on that. And like you said, Trace Jackson Davis. That's an interesting name. I
I,
mean,
I
we know
can't.
Steph came out and said didn't want to see anything necessarily done to the roster, but that would. I mean, he said nothing significant. I don't know if Trace Jackson Davis would count as significant to Steph, but yeah, if you could get him out of Golden State, that wouldn't be a bad pickup.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd win the Nick Richards sweepstakes. I think he's flawed but a very talented young big. So Phoenix got him, so I don't think we'll rest on our laurels. I think the Bucks probably have like almost. I think the Bucks will make a move at some point, more a minor one.
Okay. All right. John, what's going on, John? NFL hoping all the way teams win this week. Which one do you see can be upset? I think both games are upsets. All right. Well, look, we're about to get into that. So John's pulling for the away teams. All right. Um, hold on a second. So I guess let me pull up the bracket so we can kind of go over where we are with these teams as we are entering. This is Championship Sunday week, which, as I said at the beginning, I love the fact that they play both games on Sunday. You get them back to back, so you get Saturday to get into the mode, and then once 3 o'clock hits on Sunday, like you are just locked in. Um, oh, because I just saw a notification about Jimmy Butler, and I was just like, we were just talking about him. Don't tell me something just went down. Um, so let me share this really quickly, and we can talk about it. There we go. Um, Actually, I'm sure for those of you watching, let me make it a little bit bigger, help you out. There, that should work for you guys. Let me know. But uh, let's recap divisional round before looking ahead to championship Sunday. So we'll start with the Chiefs and the Texans. The Texans. I feel like they made it interesting early, and then they kind of fell off, and the Chiefs took over. We know the narrative surrounding the Chiefs. We don't need to get into that. But since the Chiefs did move on, we'll talk about them in a little bit. But for the Texans, you know, were you impressed? Where do you feel like they lost this one? Like, what do you think about the Texans in this game against the Chiefs? Where did they
I
go
th-
wrong?
they it really just comes down to execution, right? We can talk about the refs and everything else, but I don't think that's fully fair. I do think that there were some bad calls in that game. I'll acknowledge that, but missed field goals, blocked field goals, drop passes. When you're facing the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to execute. It's as simple as that. And for the most part, they did well for the most part, but when they got advantages, they didn't get into the end zone. And to me, that's a big problem. They were turning they let a field goal get blocked. They missed a field goal. So to me, it was pretty simple. Really just comes down to you have to put 7 on the board against the Chiefs. And they didn't. They struggled to even put 3 on the board. They couldn't execute that far. So great season from the Texans. Just you got to execute better in those situations next time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody that's talking right now, Texans got robbed by their kicker. Yeah, Fairbairn had a terrible day. John says shows how much Tank Dell was missed. Yeah, that. I mean, even though when the Tank Dell injury happened, like they weren't necessarily playing that well, but because, as Trajan said, the Texans played their best football in the playoffs, it does make you wonder if Tank Dell was available, would they have been able to knock off the Chiefs? Which, if they did, like that would have made their season, interesting to look back on. But um, look, we'll see what moves they make. I was high on the Texans early in the season. Before the season, I completely sold that stock as the season went on. But now it's like I'm kind of encouraged by the way that they played against the Chargers and the Chiefs. It's just that I need them to put together a complete season. And too many times they kind of went into games and, you know, weren't executing. Because, like you said, and this is something that, you know, with next week, the game in Arrowhead, like the Chiefs will give you an opportunity, like they'll give you a small window to kind of beat them. And if you don't take advantage of that, like they will do kind of what they did to the Texans.
I,
Um,
I,
yeah.
I, I do think the Texans for sure have to go out and get another receiver this year, like in the draft probably. Diggs is a free agent, and let's be real, we don't know how Nico Collins recovers from his leg injury. I think one of the points of emphasis, I think they need to get another weapon on the outside for next year. Just a thought.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because Diggs is a free agent. I guess we'll see if Diggs wants to stay or not. But I kind of agree with you. I wouldn't be mad if they kind of moved on from him. I think Collins, yes. Dell, seeing what he did to his knee, I don't know if you can really count on him much next year. I kind of thought John Mechie would be a little better than he is right now. But, and then they got Hutchinson. I think it's okay, but I feel like now you're getting down to like number 3, number 4 type receivers. So they could benefit from a number 1. Or if Nico Collins is your number 1, then maybe a number 2. Here we go, Damien.
Damian sounds like the Ravens from last year. Taylor Swift cost them the game.
Uh, Damien. And I was watching it, and I kind of figured when they did show that, I was like, oh, this is going to be a talking point. I just know it. But no, the Texans lost Fairbairn and their missed opportunities. That's what I'm leaving it to. I'm not getting into the Taylor Swift stuff. Nope, not gonna do it. All right, so because I'm saving a certain matchup for last, I'm sure you guys can kind of guess which one I am. Let's look at Eagles Rams because that one I feel like was an interesting game where, for whatever reason, the Rams just could not stop Saquon Barkley. Yet it seemed like the Rams were going to pull off some comeback until they ultimately didn't. So I guess looking back on that one, where did the Rams fall short? And I guess kind of like what we said with the Texans, they need a number 2 receiver or number 1. What do the Rams need in the offseason to ensure that they get back to this point and possibly further next year?
I really think that the Rams bigger bodies in the middle to stop the run because that's where this game was lost, right?
Yep.
We can talk about passing defense, but the reality is it was the run defense of the Rams that lost them this game.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't able to really do anything. They weren't able to stop the run. We saw this in the first matchup, right? Saquon went nuts. And it was more the same. Their pass rush was great. They got to Hurts like 7 times. Their pass rush was excellent. Their pass
Mm-hmm.
defense was great. It should have been enough, but the problem is whenever the Eagles decided that they were going to run the ball, they were ripping off massive chunk plays. Jalen Hurts for 44 yards, Saquon with 2 runs over 60. So I think that the Rams, I think they're in a good spot. They're in a lot better spot than I thought they'd be in. I was not sold on them going into the year, but I really think what they really need to focus on and just find some run stoppers in there.
Yeah, Anthony said Rams act like they never played in the snow. John put lines with John. I knew what you meant, saying that the Rams need a number 1 running back. Bet no one can name any of their running backs.
Kyron Williams,
Yes. Yeah.
that's the only one I can name.
Yeah, exactly. Because, well, I mean, last year, Kyron Williams was like a TD machine. So, he's a bit of a name, but I agree with you there, John. Like, they could definitely benefit from another running back. But, yeah, I thought defensively they kind of performed better than I thought they were going to in this game. Like, I thought Saquon Barkley was going to have a big game, but I also thought, you know, Hurts, it might have been a get right game for him in the passing game, but not really. Like, Jared Verse looks legit, off the edge. So, yeah, them, if they can get a big D tackle to kind of eat up some space, that would definitely help them out. Okay, let's go. Let's go Lions and the Commanders.
I do want to
Okay.
say one thing about Eagles and Rams too. It's really unfortunate that what I like to call a forgotten play happened in that game that was wild, but nobody's going to remember it because the Rams lost. Obviously, I'm talking about Puka Nakua's catch on the sideline over Darius Slay.
Yes.
I hope that gets remembered in history, but we know history is written by the winners. There's a lot of great plays on the losing side that people tend to forget about, but nobody should forget about that because that catch he made over Slay was absolutely insane.
Hmm.
And Jalen Carter is a bad, bad man.
Yes. Yeah. Like, because I'm actually glad you brought up Jalen Carter, because Jalen Carter in the draft, he kind of dropped a little because people talk about didn't know if he had the desire and all this kind of stuff. Falls to the Eagles. I feel like for a little bit there, wasn't really making an impact. But yeah, as the season went on, and in this game, like he wrecked a lot, up the middle. So it looks like the Eagles have gotten themselves another playmaker defensively up front. Obviously, they love tapping into to Georgia, that pipeline. But yeah, if he continues with this, like he's going to be a lot to handle for the next few years on that Eagles D line.
Yeah, because he was the one that just kind of sealed the game for the Eagles. Because after that Puka catch and the Rams kept marching, I really thought they had it. But
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Carter getting home on 3rd and 2 and forcing a 4th and 11 is just the game changing play that they needed. And just all year, Jalen Carter's been excellent, and now he's punched them a ticket to the NFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, which once again we'll talk about here in a little bit. Lions Commanders. Look, I I have been well. Actually, we both have. Like we have been on this Commanders thing. We've been when we made our picks between the two of us. We were picking Commanders left and right, week in and week out. They make the playoffs as a 6 seed. They were kind of like the forgotten team. It was like, oh, the Bucks might take them out. And, a lot of people thought their season like they might have been fortunate to be here. Not necessarily that great of a team, but this Lions performance was definitely a statement. Like if you weren't buying into the Jaden Daniels hype, you need to be all in at this point with the way that he performed against the Lions. Dan Quinn, Dan Quinn struggled as a Falcons coach, but like this is like vindication for him. Like this is probably the biggest one that he has on his resume. I mean, I don't. He might no. I feel like this is the biggest one for him. Uh, a team that defensively was like a joke early in the season. Like they made plays in this one. So obviously we'll talk about Commanders later, but the Lions. This is a team. Great year. Number one seed. Everybody was like pulling for them for the whole city of Detroit thing and everything like that. You got Ben Johnson, your OC, highly sought after, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Aaron Glenn, highly sought after. There was some head scratching decisions in this game. One, the fact that Ben Johnson down a couple of scores puts the ball in Jameson Williams' hand to make a pass. I didn't understand that one. Then the Lions defense seemingly not being able to adapt to what Washington was trying to do. I mean, I know their pass defense has been kind of suspect all year, but it's just like for those two guys being kind of out there as big name coaching potential hires wasn't the best tape for either one of them. So I guess for you with the Lions, I think their questions gonna be different. I'm gonna steal John's question here. The Lions window, is it closed? Is it closing? Or do you think it's still wide open?
Um, first I definitely got to send a message to all the Lions fans that were randomly taking shots at the Packers before the game started. You had 16 players on injured reserve. I know. Hey, guess what? Winning Super Bowls with 15 or more players on injured reserve isn't for anybody. But I know one team that actually pulled it off. So have fun joining us in Cancun.
Mm-hmm.
Is the door closed? It just got a lot smaller. I think
Okay.
they're still elite at pretty much every position. And when they come back healthy, I think they'll still be a force. But they are losing Ben Johnson. They are probably losing Aaron Glenn. So I think that they're going to be a lot worse than, this year. And I think you could potentially say, yeah, the door might be closed. Losing kind of the staff that put them in this position, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can, and there's also another problem with the Lions. Jared Goff. You wonder why. Well, why is he doing so many trick plays? Why is he putting the ball in JMO's hands? Is it doesn't that kind of show you how much he trusted Jared Goff?
True.
He couldn't he was turning the ball over at every step he could with some really bad reads. And it got to a point where he's like, I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna put the ball in JMO's hands. It didn't work. But honestly, I don't know if I can blame him too much. At first I was confused, but in all reality, Jared Goff couldn't elevate his game to play at the level that they needed to win this game, which is a game they should have won. And now we're taking away the coordinator that made him oh so successful. He's going to have to learn a new offense. Honestly, if the Lions want to reopen their window, they might have to try to make another big name splash for a quarterback because I do not think that this team with Jared Goff is contenders. So I'm not going to say that this team the win door is closed because of how elite they are everywhere else. But I will say it definitely just went from wide open to maybe just cracked open.
Hey, look, you want to try something else at quarterback? Well, let's start the Hendon Hooker train. Look, I love Hendon Hooker. I feel like he's gonna get an opportunity at some point, and I think I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to expect necessarily, but I don't know. I just feel like when they made that pick, I was like, I like that. I like to see what he could do. Um, let's see, catch up on comments here. So Damien, well, actually, Jory, Aaron Glenn, probably to the Jets or the Saints. I feel like it's more. I feel like I'd probably go 75% Jets, 25% Saints on that one. Lions are screwed without Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Then it's going to be hard to replace them. And they could potentially lose another coach because their D line coach, I think it's like Williams or something, is interviewing in New England for potentially their defensive coordinator job. So they might lose him as well. John, you are speaking my language here. Ravens door is closing also, which we're about to get into Ravens talk, but I want to put this out there first. Ravens door is closing also. I think they lose their DC. And are we going to hear about firing John Harbaugh? So we're going to keep that in our back pocket here. Brandon Hallam, what's going on? The AFC South had more wins this postseason than the NFC North.
It just kind of shows that the playoffs are unpredictable. Nobody would have ever
Exactly.
expected that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, the game that I obviously waited to talk about, Bills Ravens. So this one, obviously, you build it up. The two potential leading candidates, MVP. Obviously, MVP has been done as a regular season award, but people were just watching this to see, who would come out on top. Uh, the Ravens had a Heckle and Jekyll and Hyde. Why did I say Heckle? Okay, Jekyll and Hyde type of game. First half, turnovers, inability to kind of get anything going offensively. Second half, they turn it on, give themselves an opportunity late to, potentially tie the game, send it into overtime. We all know Mark Andrews had the drop. Um, Also, side note, all the, you know, threats and everything sent to Mark Andrews. Y'all Ravens fans are really coming off as ungrateful. Like Mark Andrews spent plenty of years there, was your number one target for so many years. He had a bad game and probably the worst opportunity, and now it's like he's the worst tight end ever or something. But yeah, looking at the Ravens and what John has said, Where do you put the Ravens door at this point? Because look, this is what year 6 or 7 with Lamar. He's been a 2-time MVP. To some, he should be a 3-time MVP. They've been a perennial playoff team, yet they can't get. They've made one AFC title game and they lost. They can't get past that point. So obviously, they never made a Super Bowl. What's the Ravens door looking like?
I think if the Lions door is like this, I feel like the Ravens is like that. I would say it's big. I think it's bigger than the Lions, but I can we really say that we're very confident in the Ravens because every time they get to this point, again, they just cannot close the game out. And I know the cool thing to do right now is LOL, Mark Andrews sold the game. It's all Mark Andrews' fault. Trade him, send him to the Canadian Football League.
Right.
But like, this loss was a team effort. Like, let's just not forget that part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he had a drop and a fumble in the fourth, but we're not in this position if Lamar doesn't have a really bad interception and fumble in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Did he make up for it? That 90-yard touchdown drive was fantastic. I will give him credit. He did a lot better in the second half, and he played like the guy that we thought we were getting in the second half. And the Ravens defense locked down the Bills, held them to only 6 points. But when you dig yourself into a 21-10 hole at halftime, it's not good. And that's just tough to come back from against an elite team. And the answer to that is Lamar, right? Because John Harbaugh didn't call a shot play to Tyler Rapp, and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
tell Lamar to put the ball on the ground.
Yep.
I think the only thing you can say about coaching is you can make an argument that they didn't run the ball enough. I think that's your real only gripe with the coaching, but overall, I thought the coaching was fine outside of Henry should have gotten more carries. I think that part you can put on coaching, but overall, if we're talking about the game, I think you have to put. I would say probably. I think most of the line share does go to Mark Andrews, but another big chunk has to go to Lamar, and coaching does play a part. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more on Lamar and Andrews than coaching. But I do agree they needed to run the ball more.
Yeah, and as Anthony alluded to, it's the same issue they had last year. Although last year they only ran like 3 times, so at least they learned a little bit. But all season, the formula had been Derrick Henry, 20 carries, you win. This game he only had 16. They had the drive where they basically just jumped on Derrick Henry's back. He took them all down the field, scored the touchdown, to then run a 2-point conversion, but not put the ball back in Derrick Henry's hands. They let Lamar try to pass it, it gets deflected at the line, and they missed that opportunity. Like the Ravens need to get out of this like habit of establishing who they are all regular season, and then they get certain matchups in the playoffs, and then it becomes like, and obviously I don't know if this is true or not, but from me watching them, it seems like it's prove a point Saturday or Sunday. Last year they wanted to prove a point like Lamar can do what Patrick Mahomes can do, drop back, throw the ball 30, 40 times and win. He failed there. This game it seemed like, well, Lamar had the bad first half, we'll make up for it in the second half and make Lamar beat Josh Allen. And it's like Derrick Henry's there. You brought him for a reason. Use him to make it easier on Lamar. And then they also got away from a lot of the RPO action that they used against the Steelers, where Lamar kind of kept it and ran out the back door and got yardage running the ball. They stopped doing that against Buffalo. It's like they always get to a certain point and then they change who they are, and that's why they end up here year in and year out. I agree that the Ravens door isn't like closed, but I also don't have a lot of faith in whether it's Lamar or the coaching staff ever putting together a 3 or 4 game run in a postseason to win a Super Bowl. I feel like at some point that's going to creep up that they're going to make some kind of silly mistake game plan wise that's going to cost them. Because if you look at Buffalo, Josh Allen didn't have a great game stats wise. I thought, no turnovers from him. And look, they played in the same conditions that Baltimore played in, but Baltimore had 3 turnovers and the Bills didn't. Like, something needs to be said about that. In that bad weather, you usually rely on your running game. And if you put it on paper, Derrick Henry versus James Cook, and yet they have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, you'd probably give the slight edge to Baltimore because of Derrick Henry. Yet they underutilized them once again, and now they find themselves where they are.
And I also think that the coaching and calling more passes than runs was actually pretty defensible this time around, right? Because the Bills locked in on stopping the run. They held them to like 73 rushing yards in the first half,
Mm-hmm.
which, that sounds like a lot, but when you're the Ravens, that really isn't as much as a lot of a lot of Ravens games. So they probably were a little like getting slowed down a little by the Bills defense in the first half on the ground, and then the turnovers put them into a 21-10 hole. So you run into a situation where okay, we got to play from behind. Now we have to air the ball out more. Plus the Bills are selling out to stop the run, which for one drive in the second half it didn't matter. Derrick Henry went beast mode, but I thought for the most part of the game the Bills really you were just selling out to stop the run, and that's probably why you saw Monken call more pass than runs because he thought they could take advantage of it, and he put the ball in Lamar's hands and trusted him to make plays, and it worked for 2 quarters. It didn't go so great for 2 quarters, and that kind of was the difference. Self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah. And like I understand that because I do think in the first half you saw the Bills make a concerted effort to stop Derrick Henry, not let Derrick Henry beat them. But I thought the second that drive happened where Derrick Henry was breaking through for decent run after decent run, I thought at that point, whatever your game plan was at that point, you throw it out the window and you go feed Derrick Henry the rest of the game. Because at that point, you're in the second half. Because of the first half carries, like you had a defense that's been hitting and taking down Derrick Henry. We know he's a big back. That in the second half, a lot of defenders don't necessarily want to see him breaking through the line and coming at them. And for whatever reason, they went away from it. Like I said, the first half, I understand if you pass the ball a little bit more, but the second half, once Derrick Henry showed he was finding space, that's when you should have kept going down the line with that.
I will say the one thing I didn't like that the coaches did was the 2 point conversion on that drive where Derrick Henry put them on their back.
Yep.
Genuinely, he was on such a heater that even if he just straight up lined up in a heavy formation and gave it to him,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the right call. They clearly couldn't stop him on that drive for 3 yards, what they would have needed for the 2 point conversion. Sorry, two. But
Mm-hmm.
granted, I will say, I think that mesh concept that they were running, I think the drag route to Likely was actually open. It just got tipped at the line.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that you should have ever ran that. I think it's just, hey, Henry's hot. They can't do anything. Just give him the ball.
Yep.
Feed the beast.
Yep. Absolutely. Trajan says Josh Allen proved in that game he's the MVP. He felt the game and played like he knew what the trend was. Lamar didn't make crazy mistakes, but more than Josh, who played it safe. That's fair. Because yes, the fumble, like Lamar said, it was a bad snap. He had it. He was trying to make a play, and then he was trying to switch hands, and the ball just fell out of his hand. Get that with the conditions. The interception is kind of inexcusable. Like you just dropped back. I think Ed Oliver had broken through, so I guess he felt a little rushed. But you can't just float a ball in safety over the top coverage right to the safety. Like if you're gonna do that, throw it out of bounds over the wide receiver's head because clearly nothing was there. But
And
that was an interception that we usually see from Josh Allen.
I also want to say I hate this idea that's on the internet that, oh, well, the Bills didn't get points off the interception, so the interception doesn't really matter.
No.
By handing the ball to Buffalo, they were still able to burn a solid 3.5 minutes off the game clock. And you took the ball out of your offense's hand, which, by the way, it wasn't having trouble moving the ball. They had over 400 yards of offense.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate this idea that all because the Ravens didn't, sorry, Buffalo didn't score, that the pick didn't matter. Knock it off. Yes, it did. You took the ball out of your lethal offense's hands and took 3 minutes off the clock, which guess what you could have used at the end of the game? Probably a couple extra minutes if you don't score on the drive that you are currently on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because I mean, because of how Buffalo was kind of playing in the second half, it did seem like Buffalo was like waiting out the clock by the end of it. Like, Baltimore's slowly building more and more momentum. But hey, Buffalo's moving on. It's a big win for Josh Allen's resume. He beats Lamar in the playoffs. But yeah, so now championship Sunday, we have our matchup set. We've got Eagles Commanders on the NFC side. We got Chiefs Bills AFC side. So let's start NFC. So going into this one, we have the Eagles as a 6-point favorite right now. I mean, looking at both teams and how they're playing right now, is there a reason to think that the Commanders might not just be a team of destiny? Like, who do you have winning this one? I guess biggest reason for it, and I guess player to watch.
I think the Eagles win this one. I think that the Commanders. I think the Commanders' best chance to win this one is to turn this game into a track meet like they did against the Lions. Kind of take the ball away from Saquon, put it into Hurts' hands, and hope he makes a couple mistakes. But I think the reality is one, this is a very healthy Eagles team. I think the only loss they have is N'Kobe Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts, I think, is banged up. So anything's possible, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, Eagles blow them out. But I still think they win. I think that defensive front is going to be in the backfield for quite a majority of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And between Darius Slay, Cooper DeJean, they just have guys who can cover these receivers. This isn't facing a completely depleted, Lions secondary,
Mm-hmm.
which they were able to take advantage of, and Aaron Glenn's, and I think this is a key too, taking advantage of Aaron Glenn's over reliance on the blitz.
Yeah.
This is an Eagles team that can rush four, get pressure, and sit back in coverage. And I think that will be kind of the decider of this game. I think it'll be back and forth. I think the Commanders will stay in it, but I think the Eagles' ability to get home without having to send extra men will be the difference. And I think the Eagles are going to come away with a win.
All right. So you're taking the Eagles and the 6?
Yeah, I'll take the Eagles and the 6. I think they'll win by 7. I think it'll be right on the border.
Okay. Okay. I look this one. I felt like before the playoffs started, I said the Eagles are probably the most talented team on the NFC side. Obviously, for them, they'd have to get past mentally what happened last year in the playoffs, and they did that. They didn't look great against the Packers. They didn't look great against the Rams. They looked a little better against the Rams than they did against the Packers. I I don't know. I feel like I might be buying in once again to this Commanders team. I just think I thought the Bucks game was a learning experience. I thought the Lions game was a coming of age moment for this team. I think they are going in to Philly riding a high that I don't know if they necessarily fall short here. Now, the key obviously is going to be protecting Jaden Daniels up front. Because, like we said, Jalen Carter wrecked a lot that the Rams wanted to do, especially late in that game. So you need to obviously keep him away from Jaden Daniels. But Jaden Daniels is just showing an ability to like be calm in the pocket, making the right decisions, that I think he's going to pose some threats to the Eagles secondary. And I feel like we saw him use his legs a lot more against the Lions because he's one of those guys that he can run, but a lot of times he kind of has like a Russell Wilson in him where he scrambles to throw the ball downfield. I think we get him out there and running a lot more, obviously protecting himself. He's not the biggest guy either. I just feel like I think this game does turn into a shootout, whether it is like a Saquon Barkley type of like big performance, but I think the Commanders will be able to stick with them. And I think the Commanders ultimately get the win in the end here. So I'm going to take the Commanders plus the 6, but I think the Commanders win outright. And look, maybe I'm buying into the hype, and the Eagles kind of prove what I thought before the season before the playoffs started, that they are the more talented NFC team and that prevails here, but I'll take the Commanders plus 6.
No, that's fair enough. And say I'm looking forward to this one. At the end of the day, should be a lot of fun. Obviously, they split their regular season matchup, so
Mm-hmm.
got to be able to throw. The one full game that Hertz played, he threw for over like 200. I think he threw for like 220 yards, 18 to 26. He can throw on this team. He's shown he can do it before.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the one loss they had was when Hertz got hurt and Kenny Pickett played the rest of the game. I think Hertz threw 4 passes that entire game. So it's a defense where Hertz can throw on it.
Yeah.
But the key will be, I think he will make a mistake at some point. He hasn't been perfect these playoffs. It'll just be up to the Commanders to capitalize on it. But the Eagles just have too many weapons for most teams to handle between Barkley, Goddard, Smith, Brown. Jahan Dotson found the end zone this playoff run.
Trading talking about pressure or not, Jaden Daniels doesn't blink. Yes, and that's the one thing I absolutely love about him. Damian said that he wants the Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl, but doesn't see the Eagles winning.
Go Bills.
Right. John, like the head coach hire, but not sure about our OC. Talking about our Patriots, which John we'll talk about here in a little bit. Been in the league for the years. Has he adapted? Miss on Ben Johnson. Yeah, we'll talk about that right after talking about Chiefs Bills. Then we'll get into some of the coaching news. All right, Chiefs Bills. Look, I feel like America outside of Kansas City will be rooting for Buffalo. We know people are tired of Kansas City winning. We know that when they do win, people are like the refs are helping them. So Josh Allen is seen as the last remaining savior to prevent the three-peat and everything like that. The Chiefs are a 2-point favorite, which that could be a little shocking with them being at Arrowhead. The home team gets 3 points. So Vegas kind of likes Buffalo's chances in this one. Buffalo, like we said, coming off of a big win over Baltimore. The challenges that Baltimore presented to Buffalo, they won't necessarily have the same with Kansas City, but it doesn't mean that it's an easier game for them because now you got to deal with Mahomes' experience, Travis Kelce, who now at this point in his career basically sleepwalks through the regular season and just turns it on in the playoffs. You got, Pacheco and those guys running the ball. You have Spagnuolo's defense that you now have to deal with if you're Buffalo. So how do you see this one playing out?
I'm gonna let my this one can go either way, right? Normally, I would pick the Chiefs because betting against Mahomes in those playoffs is a very just kind of stupid endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll address that in a second, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say go Bills. I want the Bills, and it's not because I hate the Chiefs. I actually don't care if any of these 4 teams win the Super Bowl. I'd love to see a three-peat, a rookie leading his team, although it would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I want Buffalo is I lived in New York for 5 years, and they were my second team when I was up there, Packers and Bills. So I'll let the homerism talk here. Give me the Bills. I think Josh Allen will do exactly what he did last week, and he'll protect the football. He'll play it safe,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this will be a fun, close game. That give me a Tyler Bass walk-off field goal. So give me the Bills.
I'm kind of there with you. I feel like there's something going on with the Bills, and look, I remember on sideline to sideline, like Gene asked me about teams I hate, and he brought up Buffalo, and it was a quick no for me. AFC East teams, I can't stand the Jets. You guys all know that. The Jets misery is yeah, my drug. The Dolphins, can't stand them. Buffalo, I respect Buffalo. I respect the fan base. I respect everything that they have going on. I'm a big Josh Allen fan, and especially seeing Drake May and a lot of comparisons between the two of them from NFL people, like whatever. But I feel like this is Josh Allen's moment where he can set a lot of the records straight about him because he's been kind of put in the category with Lamar and some of these other guys who have put up numbers but haven't really done it playoff wise. This is his chance to get the revenge for the 13-second game, which Josh Allen did everything he needed to win that game. It was his defense that blew it for him. So he's shown that he can go up against Mahomes and put his team in a position to win. I think we have a better version of Josh Allen this year than even back then. So for me, it's hard for me to think that he's not going to do the same thing. Well, not exactly the same thing because the Chiefs, like you got Chris Jones to deal with up front, like it's going to be difficult. But there's a reason. I can't find a reason to think that Josh Allen won't play really well once again. And I do think, like you said, I think the Bills get this one. And it won't be any knock on the Chiefs for what they've done the past few years. Like winning back to back is crazy enough. Getting back to this point, your third year in a row is crazy as well. Like thinking about how many games they've played in the last 3 years, like you still got to celebrate what they've done. I just think this Buffalo team, this Josh Allen, are ready to take them down.
No, absolutely. And I do want to say about, the Caleb Williams comment.
Yes.
Don't let what Jaden Daniels is doing, like, fog your judgment on Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to be an elite quarterback in his own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
So I understand it's going to be easy. Like, oh, we should have taken Jaden Daniels. One, we've seen plenty of situations where we have two rookies. One's clearly better than the other in the rookie year, but as the career goes on, who knows? This is year one out of who knows how many. So there's still a very, very real chance that Caleb Williams is better than Jaden Daniels in the long run. Who knows? But I do want to say, just to defend Caleb a little bit here, what Daniels is doing is incredible, but don't use it as an attack on, Caleb Williams, because Caleb was great in his own right. The Bears just being absolutely as dysfunctional as they are, just didn't really build properly. They didn't put a line around him, competent coaching. So don't slam Caleb for Jaden Daniels being this good right away.
yeah, and I've seen conversations with the surrounding the Patriots, and can Drake May have a jump like Jaden Daniels had this year? And it's like when comparing those three quarterbacks, it's like different situations, different makeup. I mean, look, a lot of Jaden Daniels' success you got to give to Kingsbury, the OC. You know, coming up with game plans that obviously fit Jaden Daniels' skill set. You got to give Dan Quinn a lot of credit for, I guess the advancement of the defense from week one to now. They look completely different. Like you got to give the situation that he's in credit to his success. So yeah, Bears fans, like you have other issues in Chicago to worry about. Like don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't put Caleb Williams on that list yet. Especially as we'll talk about here in a second, the news that they made coaching wise. So yeah, don't get too far down, Bears fans. At least not about Caleb Williams. Question: whoever wins this game, does the losing team have the right complaining about the refs?
If
Losing teams fans will complain about the refs anyway, so that's
if you played poorly enough that the game comes down to a referee decision, the referee didn't lose you that game. Let me put it that way.
yeah.
You didn't play well enough to win out game outright, and the game comes down to a referee's choice. It's not the referee's fault you lost that game. I promise. People love playing that card. Like we saw it with Baltimore and the Bills. We saw we have a mutual accomplice who was complaining about the refs.
Mm-hmm.
Or with KC, I think the better example is KC and the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
People were complaining about the 30, like the roughing the passers, but did the Texans really play well enough to win that game? No. So that will always be my answer to questions like that about complaining about the refs. If your team let the game come down to a ref's decision, it's not the ref's fault you lost that game.
Yep. I I completely agree. I mean, look, it's easy for fans to kind of do that. Like we're wired that way. Your team loses, you're going to look at the one or two calls and go, see if that went this way, then we would have done this and this and this, and we would, yeah. So I'm I've gotten to the point where I never necessarily do that with the refs. At least once the game ends. During the game, I could do it, but once it ends, I'm like, you know what? We really came up short because of this opportunity missed.
Yeah, I think it's okay to
Okay.
be frustrated about calls, but I don't think you can ever blame the refs for losing you the game. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. John asks, I feel like every episode, Anthony Richardson comes up somehow. What about Anthony Richardson? How many years does he need?
20.
Well, remember, I think it was like Discord or whatever. You found that comparison where Colts fans think Anthony Richardson is Josh Allen meeting Lamar Jackson. If that's what he is, then next year he better be in the playoffs and a legit contender. Because if not, what else does he need?
The problem is you can say that, but he has the processing speed of Nathan Peterman. Like
Mm-hmm.
he does not go through reads and process the field well. He makes a lot of really bad choices out there.
Yeah,
And like in all seriousness, could he be a good quarterback? Sure,
right.
but I just don't see it. I don't see it. Not only do I not see, I don't think Anthony Richardson will be. I don't think he'll be like this special talent like people think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to blame that all on him. I also don't think the Colts are going to put the right pieces and coaching around him to really maximize his skill set. Because these past few years, it seems like they've just been throwing him out there.
Mm-hmm.
Go show us what you can do, Anthony Richardson. The problem with that is that's what we've seen teams like the Bears do every year. You get your shiny new quarterback and you just throw him out there and go, okay, show us what you got.
Yep.
Well, these quarterbacks are unfinished projects. And I don't think the Colts are going to be able to take the strengths of Anthony Richardson and weaponize him because you see the natural skill is there,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think the coaching will fully take advantage of it. I have no faith in the Colts to do that, and I just do not have faith in Anthony Richardson also in being a franchise quarterback.
Damian. I hate that I'm saying this, but Anthony Richardson is Jade Cargill of the NFL. If you know, you know.
He he so he's got the heart of Ben Simmons half the time. I do not like it. I do not
Mm-hmm.
like it either. I'm not high on Anthony Richardson. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to drag Jade Cargill into this, but yeah. Um, all right. So, look, we'll obviously be back here next week. We do have the week in between before the Super Bowl, but we'll know at least the Super Bowl matchup. So, we'll obviously address this then. But let's get into some coaching news. So, let me go ahead and take the screen. There we go. I don't know why that was the default of that. All right. So, first, we can talk about Ben Johnson was introduced today as the new head man with the Bears. So, Damien, I guess give us your grade on that hire. But I guess for you, Brett, very simple: right hire or not.
It's the right hire. It really is. This is a guy we've seen with the Lions. He's have like what now 3 years of elite offenses with Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I think what that impresses the most about Ben Johnson is you can never truly game plan for him because even the most basic concepts, he adds his own twists on them. So he's very hard to game plan for, even in the loss. Because I've seen this stupid thing where people are like, "Oh, he wasn't as focused, and that's why they lost to the Lions, or they lost to the Commanders." The
Right.
offense still had over 500 yards of offense and 31 points. He can't go onto the field and prevent Jared Goff from making bad reads. I think that this was a step in the right direction. I think there is some risk involved. Obviously, we're talking about a rookie head or a rookie coach.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with the Ben Johnson offense is it requires a lot of precision and timing. Caleb Williams is more of an innovative gunslinger. We saw that, him trying to create, off schedule. And Ben Johnson, he likes to do things on schedule. So I think there will be a little bit of a gelling period where they, have to combine Caleb and Ben Johnson's strengths all together. But I think this is absolutely the right hire. I think it'll come together rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, all that's left for the Lions, left for the Bears. Let's put together an offensive line. Let's get that all settled in there.
Yeah. I mean, as Damien put it, finally the organization has a brain. I agree with you. I think this was the move to make, and now we obviously have to see how he fills out his staff. Part of me wonders if the D line coach from the Lions, who, like I said, is interviewing in New England, if he doesn't get that job, would Ben Johnson maybe bring him in to Chicago to be the DC, like something like that? I'd be interested to see. John says Kellen Moore pretty matched in Dallas. Probably. Um, yeah, I feel like Kellen Moore. I don't know who knows what Dallas at this point. Like they're talking Dion, they're talking Kellen Moore. Like, yeah, good luck guessing where Jerry Jones is going to turn for that one. But yeah, so I guess moving past the Ben Johnson move, John, if you're still in here, I know that you did. Obviously, you just said the Kellen Moore thing. Let's see. Damien says, hope we get Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen. Where did I see Dennis Allen's name attached to?
Actually, the Bears. It's rumored that he's going to be
Yeah,
brought in as the
that's right.
defensive
Yeah.
coordinator.
Yes, that's right. And then look, I wouldn't hate that. Dennis Allen's a pretty good defensive coordinator. But John, yes, let's answer this one because John saying he likes the Mike Vrabel hire. Not sure about OC. So if you guys don't know, Josh McDaniels has been hired to be OC. I know before we started it was going to be, but I think it's official at this point. Been in the league for years. Has he adapted? Here's what I will tell you, John. This past year, when he was out of football, Josh McDaniels decided to kind of bounce around to colleges, learning kind of different schemes with the hope that he would get an OC job and kind of modernize his offense to adapt to, I guess, the modern college quarterback. Which, if you look at Drake May is as modern of a quarterback as you can get. He's a guy with a strong arm, can make throws, and has mobility, as we saw this past season. So I do think that Josh McDaniels has adapted. Because I also think, and John, you can, I guess, let me know what you think about this. From what we've seen from Mike Vrabel so far, like Mike Vrabel probably wouldn't have got him if he didn't feel like he adapted. Because Mike Vrabel said, going to tailor the offense for your best player. Hard to argue who the best player on the Patriots offense is at this point. It is Drake May. So I get where a lot of people are concerned because of Josh McDaniels being, an old face. But I think that for Drake May, not a terrible hire. I'm actually okay with it. I know they brought in like Thomas Brown, who they interviewed, the Bears interim, Bears OC first, Bears quarterback coach. But I think Josh McDaniels is a good hire. And since Vrabel's final say, if Josh McDaniels ain't it, he'll just fire him and bring somebody else. But I like the hire. Missed on Ben Johnson. Well, I mean, Ben Johnson was either going to be the head coach or not. Like, so I'm fine with Mike Vrabel, especially you did the rookie coach thing with Gerard Mayo. I don't know if they're going to go back to that well once again. Josh McDaniels is a yes man. Of course, it's not shocking he went back to New England. Damian, we tried to give your team some credit, and now you're taking shots at mine. Number one, I don't think Mike Vrabel wants yes men. I feel like that's not going to happen with Vrabel. So, yeah, 7 wins is a success first year. Yes, like I'm not going to sit here and think Vrabel coming in, you're automatically going to go from you're not gonna do the Commanders thing necessarily. Go 4 to how many wins do they have? What 10 or 11 this year? Making
Yeah.
playoff, making a conference title game? No, but if they're a 7, 8 win team next year, like that's definitely a big jump. So I would call that a success. And looking at their schedule, I think 7, 8 wins is reachable next year. All right. I guess more coaching news. Jory alluded to it a little earlier. It seems like Aaron Glenn is down to the Jets and the Saints, and it really seems like the Jets are trying to get Aaron Glenn locked in this week. Seems like he's the leader in the clubhouse there. What would you feel about that hire?
It's funny. It really is. You fired Robert Sala to bring in another defensive head coach. Like, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think your only argument with that is if Robert Sala lost the locker room, but in all reality, I don't see what like is he going to be a good coach? Like maybe like we're not so sure because obviously jumping from DC to head coach is a really big jump.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, like if I had to pick between the Jets and the Saints, yeah, I'd go to the Jets too. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Jets really know what they're looking for because like they fire Salah who had that defense playing like he was doing great, and then you fire him to bring in just a younger, more inexperienced defensive guy. Like the math just ain't mathing here for me.
David, I respect it. I respect it. Look, I know Aaron Glenn played for the Jets. I feel like for him, this is the job he definitely wants. I mean, if you're the Jets, looking at what's out there, yeah, I don't know. It's the Jets. I never really know where their head is at because I can see what you're saying. If you fire Salah for being a defensive coach, who is a defensive coach, your next hire being a defensive coach is interesting. I mean, I can't necessarily hate that because the Patriots are literally doing the same thing. Mayo to Vrabel are two defensive guys, but um, Vrabel obviously is more experienced, so that's a little different. I, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, and that's my big thing. Like I've seen Vrabel be successful elsewhere. Like he has
Mm-hmm.
experience. Like Aaron Glenn doesn't. And I'm not saying not trying to crap on him, saying he's going to be a bad coach, but I just at this point I just don't know what the Jets are trying to build here. Honestly,
I mean, it does seem like the Jets are obviously in like post Aaron Rodgers mode, so maybe they're going to go back to relying on the defense, take a quarterback that I guess on the quarterback position get obviously a lesser name, maybe get back to running the ball more, and yeah, maybe that's what it is. And Aaron Glenn seems like the best option to them. Then obviously with Aaron Glenn and every defensive coach, you pay close attention to the OC that they bring in because a lot of these defensive minds don't touch offense, so they kind of just let the coordinator do whatever. So that's going to be a key hire for him, and I don't know who necessarily would be in play there. Like, could Thomas Brown get an interview there? I don't know, but yeah, I it's where I had Aaron Glenn going the whole time. So if they do get it done this weekend, I can't say it's a terrible hire because I assume that was the fit to begin with.
You know who I think made a terrible hire? Do you see who the Dallas Cowboys hired as their offensive coordinator?
I did not. Did that
Bur-
just happen?
Shefty. Oh, wait a minute. Oh no, never mind. My bad. It's an
Oh,
old tweet. Well, I got mixed up because they announced that Brian Schottenheimer's in the running for their head coach. And I think that would be the most hilarious hire possible because to me, that would be the biggest fucking downgrade that you could, sorry, friggin' downgrade that you could possibly
what?
do. Yeah.
Where's Brian Schottenheimer been? I haven't heard that name in years.
Last time we saw him, it was in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But no, there was talks about, that all of a sudden he's a candidate for the Cowboys head coaching job, him and Kellen Moore. And I just think that's the funniest thing ever. As soon as I saw that name pop up in the rumor mill, because I'm like, there ain't no way. Like his 2 trips as offensive coordinator, where I think he was like the Rams or Commanders in like 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and naturally, like 2018 to 2020, Russell Wilson Seahawks. So I feel like the Cowboys are going to make a hilariously wrong decision in picking a coach, and it's going to be the funniest thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Brady is currently still out there, but I mean, he's with the Bills, so you can't do an in-person interview with him until the Bills lose.
Yeah, I think Joe Brady will be gone. I still I like what Gene said. I like Joe Brady to Jacksonville.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it obviously looks like Jacksonville's going to go offensive for sure, and it seems like it's Brady or Cohen from Tampa Bay. So yeah, so I guess if Jackson was willing to wait, then Brady probably will be in play there. Let's see, not necessarily a new hire, but Minnesota is giving Kevin O'Connell an extension because there was some talk about some teams may call Minnesota for like trading for O'Connell or something like that. So, what do you think about that for Minnesota?
I think it's fantastic. I hate it as a Packers fan, but
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think that's a great hire. We're talking about a guy who revitalized the career of Sam Darnold, who was thought to
Mm-hmm.
be left for dead,
Yep.
and he was just absolutely terrific for him. I think that's just the right call. I think if there's somebody who can just get the absolute most out of JJ McCarthy next year, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be him. I'm assuming that's the direction they're going to go is McCarthy, and I think Kevin O'Connell is the perfect guy to lead that charge. So I love it. I love the extension.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think it's the right move. I feel like he's been a good hire for them. Why not keep it going? And obviously they have a decision to make with the quarterback position, but yeah, I don't hate that move at all. I'm trying to think. I think that's all of the like coaching news that's out there right now. Obviously, the Cowboys are in a weird position, coming off of the whole Mike McCarthy thing. Now, basically, seem like they don't know who like to interview right now. It's like I said, Kellen Moore, Schottenheimer came out of left field. Like I didn't hear anybody talk about Schottenheimer for anything this round of hiring. So I guess like whatever.
Yeah,
Also, I
no,
don't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's just weird. Like this coaching cycle, teams just to be seem to be interviewing anybody and everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
like Schottenheimer Moore, like that's just such a weird duo. I'm assuming it's going to be Kellen Moore that gets the coaching job,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just weird. Like you were talking about guys like getting interviews, like the offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. I think it was Mike Loxley, the head coach of Maryland. Like this head coaching search has been so weird. It's been kind of fun to watch.
Jory said Cole Anderson got fired, which special teams coordinator in Tennessee. and they picked up the Cowboys special teams coordinator. So upgrade there. Another coach that Jerry Jones let walk out the door. Simple answer, no.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's not time. One, you don't fire Mike Tomlin. You trade Mike Tomlin. I don't think
yeah,
he'll ever be fired
yeah.
because you'd be stupid to fire him because there's 29 other teams that would be backing up to sign Mike Tomlin.
Yep.
When we talk about Mike Tomlin, first question I'm going to ask, when's the last time you had a real franchise quarterback? You can say Big Ben, but once again, when did franchise quarterback Big Ben leave the building? Because the last 2 years of Big Ben was like
He was
the
awful.
growth of Big Ben.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a guy who hasn't had a franchise quarterback in a hot minute, and I'm including the last 2 years of Ben Roethlisberger, and
Yep.
he keeps overachieving. So I think if you're looking to move on, you definitely trade him. You can definitely get picks for Mike Tomlin, but I I still think he's a really good coach, and he just absolutely just brings the absolute best out of everybody. I think
Mm-hmm.
that if you get him a real franchise quarterback, that he could very well win another Super Bowl. I know you can say, well, he didn't win one with Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, but they had this weird thing when they had those three. Their defense was terrible. They had guys like Artie Burns as cornerback one.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff was terrible. But then
Yep.
they finally get their defense to peak up. But then by the time, Le'Veon's gone, Antonio's gone, Ben's a shell of himself, and now we're playing quarterback roulette. So I don't think that this whole Steelers dilemma is actually on Mike Tomlin. I think it's more so on the front office because he's not going to send a team out there to lose. He's going to compete. And they're not giving him the quarterback to properly go and compete and win football games.
Yep. That, well said. Jory said, time for another coach in that division to go. Well, if it's not Mike Tomlin,
I wonder who.
you're left with Zach Taylor, Kevin Stefanski. She's clearly talking about John Harbaugh. And look, if you're going to have the questions about Tomlin, Harbaugh's been there just as long, has had, playoff runs with, I feel like, more superior teams than necessarily Tomlin teams, and have come up short. I think the question needs to be asked. And I think John kind of put that in a comment earlier about Harbaugh.
I
Yeah.
I do think a coach from that division needs to go. His name is Zach Taylor. That dude needs to go. But
He can't have the slow start next season.
yeah,
Like
right.
that cannot happen next year.
You missed the playoffs back-to-back years with prime Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
And you also had like Jamar Chase. I think
Yep.
what did he won like the triple crown in receiving? Hendrickson led the team in sacks. You could have walked into the playoffs with most coaches, not Zach Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
What, you don't trust Mason Rudolph? I would rather see Michael Vick come up from college and play a season than Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
And the thing with the whole Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, I don't think it really mattered. I think they just lose out the last 5 games anyway. If you look at the last 5-game losing streak that everybody likes to complain about,
Yep.
it was a stretch where they played like, what was it? The three best teams in football, one of the hottest teams in football, and then the playoff game against Baltimore. Like, I don't think it really matters which quarterback you have in there. I think they both get equally slaughtered. Now, I do agree that Justin Fields was, yes, he has a higher ceiling than Russ,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he probably should have been the starter. But I don't think it's this as big of a deal as people are making it. I think they're just cooked at the end of the year anyway, because that schedule just got insane for them.
Yeah, the games were at Eagles, at Ravens, home for the Chiefs, home for the Bengals, and then the playoff loss to the Ravens. Jory says, somebody who had to endure Mason Rudolph, I'd rather listen to paint dry than go through that again. Right. Yeah, so I think in terms of coaching news, that's all that I can remember. So obviously, it's something we'll be watching week in and week out because I do think now with Vrabel off the board, Ben Johnson off the board, I think these other hires will probably happen pretty soon, especially with Buffalo, because I do think people are watching for Brady, hoping that they get a chance to interview him. Um, I don't think anybody from the Eagles necessarily or Commanders, but I feel like Joe Brady's the one that people are kind of waiting to see. And I do think, because I did see a story earlier, like it seems like Brian Flores will be back in Minnesota next season because it seems like the jobs will be gone, I guess, and he won't have really a seat at the table. So I guess he's gonna have to go through this again, prove with that defense, and then jump back in next year. Which
I,
look, if Raheem Morris fails in Atlanta, he needs to be gone, and the Falcons should hire Brian Flores. That would be
I,
that would be my path there.
I I don't know. It feels like if I feel like we're going to be starting to look at Brian Flores and almost the same like I feel like he's going to be stuck in that Eric Bieniemy cycle. Like I just don't think that he's going to be a coach. I think if he's going to be head coach, probably would have happened already. I think he would have gotten more consideration this offseason. Like why would the Jets, for example, not look at Brian Flores? If you want Aaron Glenn, you want a defensive-minded coach who has head coaching experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, I think Aaron Glenn has the Jets connection as he
yeah,
played there.
well,
Although Damien brought up Tom Brady, I feel like we haven't heard a thing about the Raiders job. I don't see why Flores wouldn't get an interview there when Brady knows Brian Flores.
I I think I think they're probably taking a minute to kind of reshuffle because they made that all-out pass for Ben Johnson, didn't get him. So
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see who they go with. Like, hey, maybe they're waiting on Joe Brady.
yeah. Because I was about to say I think there might be a bit of a hold on a couple of jobs because they're waiting for Joe Brady. But I guess you figure Liam Cohen maybe takes a. I don't even know how he factors in. Because let's say he did get the Jacksonville job, then yeah, then maybe the Raiders are waiting for Joe Brady while the Cowboys kind of do whatever on the side. I feel like the Cowboys are like jumping into the coaching pool that like nobody else is. So they'll have their pick of their guy, but it's like no other team's going to be like, oh no, we missed out on whoever they hire. Like, no.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of people saying, "Yeah, we interviewed Kellen Moore, guys,"
Right.
and this is
I'm
and this
actually,
is like I said, a coaching hire that I'm kind of convinced at this point I'm going to open my door tomorrow and I'm going to get an interview. Like they're just going after everybody, but Kellen Moore,
mm-hmm.
they're not touching him.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there's been anything on the Raiders job.
I only think why Brian Flores
Um,
head coach. Yeah, that's yeah. I really just don't think that Brian Flores is going to be a head coach again. And honestly, I think it's going to be more so maybe due to politics behind the scenes. Maybe just probably not even so much to do with Brian Flores himself, which is unfortunate.
mm-hmm.
I think he deserves another chance, but part of me really doesn't think that the head coaching job for him is like going to come again.
Yeah, like you definitely hate to think that that's what it is, but because I know you said Bienemy, I think the difference was like Bienemy when he left Kansas City, he like went to college and he went to UCLA, and UCLA didn't necessarily have the greatest season. I think he's out there. Like Flores at least went to Minnesota and completely transformed that defense and has that defense as like a legit top 10, top 5 defense in the league. Like he's still within the NFL circle, proving that he has that ability. Whereas, like I said, Bienemy went off to college. I forgot he was at UCLA until I was like watching Pac-12 football one day and I saw he was coaching UCLA and I was like, oh, that's where he is. So he's kind of like out of sight, out of mind with him. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really seeing much about the Raiders job. So Mm-hmm. He went to Washington. Oh yeah, what? See, I can't believe I forgot his Washington stint. You're absolutely right, Jory. I completely screwed that up. Yeah, he went to Washington and did miracles with Howell. Yes, he did. So yes, thank you for the correction. I forgot. I completely forgot about his Washington stint. Um, okay, so like I said, we'll be obviously looking into the coaching carousel more next week. I'm assuming more jobs might fill up by then. But the last thing, Bienry's never going to get a head coaching job because of his attitude with players and domestic charges he had. I mean, there's like we got to be real and say that there are plenty of coaches that have some dirt on them. Like there's a lot of coaches out there that if you looked at their past, they're like not the greatest people. So I mean, yes, not to make light of domestic charges or anything like that, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. Let's see. All right, so the last thing we're gonna do, because coming up on 2 hours, and I know Brett, you have meaty boys after this, so go through this really quickly. NFL execs making predictions for the offseason and what they think will happen. There's like 6 or 7 of them. Gonna throw them out there. You in the chat, Brett, you as well. Let me know how likely you think it could happen. So I guess just to let you know, last year they predicted like Russell Wilson to the Raiders, which obviously they didn't get. They predicted the Packers to the Super Bowl, they didn't get. But they did predict Kirk Cousins to the Falcons and the 49ers taking a step back. So some of these execs are kind of doing well. First one, Sam Darnold will be a Raider.
I'll buy into that. I'll buy into that because they're in an awkward spot where they're not high enough to draft their franchise quarterback anyway. So I think a 1 year stopgap with someone like Sam Darnold is might be the way to go because best case scenario, you build up some hype and you get some wins and maybe you can sneak into a playoff picture because Sam Darnold was good enough with the Vikings for most of the year until the last 2 games.
Mhm.
Worst case scenario, guess what? If he goes back to Jets Sam Darnold or Panthers, well, now you're in your position in an extremely strong draft class with quarterbacks to get your franchise guy. And the thing with Sam Darnold is, I think if you add him to the Raiders, it's a top 10 pick.
Mhm.
So I think it's a win, and you get a veteran stopgap quarterback that's better than Aiden O'Connell and gives your fan base some hope. But you're also not pushing yourself out of the conversation of landing one of the better quarterbacks in next year's draft.
Okay. Yeah. And I think because you said you buy it. We'll do it as you buy it or sell it. So this one you'll buy. I'd buy it as well. Like the Raiders quarterback situation's been horrendous. And if you're telling me Sam Darnold, yeah, he's a clear upgrade over Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ritter. So yeah, I would buy that. Next, Aaron Rodgers will retire. You
I'm
buying
going
or
to sell that
selling?
one.
Okay.
I think Aaron Rodgers is a very prideful man. And I think here, he's going to look and see all the, negativity that's being spewed about him. And I think he's going to come back and he's going to try to make that one final playoff push and make a decent playoff run. Probably not with the Jets. Maybe he links up with Mike Tomlin in the offseason, Rodgers to the Steelers. But I think that what's going to happen is he's going to come back and try to make one final playoff push.
Okay. I mean, look, I want to buy. I want to buy all the stock of that. I'm ready for a league without Aaron Rodgers, but I agree with you. The ego will not allow it. So I'm gonna say sell. I don't know where he pops up, but he pops up somewhere. But yeah, I would love to say buy, and he can go off and film like Enigma 2 or something. I don't know. I don't, do something, but yeah, I'm selling that one as well. Next up, the Steelers will sign Justin Fields and draft a quarterback.
Next year, actually, I'll buy that one. I'll buy that one. I think they're going to have to try to get that franchise guy at some point, and I don't think it's Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is very
Mhm.
limited in the passing game. I think there's a reason why, even if it was just a short term boost, the offense looked more explosive with Russ. They were generating big plays that weren't there with Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields could be, a solid quarterback, maybe a solid bridge quarterback in the league, like a game manager. But I don't think he's a franchise guy, and that's what the Steelers need. So I'm going to buy that one.
All right. Damien said he could see Rodgers playing for the Vikings if Darnold leaves. I guess he did. I guess he was willing to do like a 1 year deal because JJ McCarthy's obviously going to be still be rehabbing next year. I guess. I guess he wants to continue following Brett Favre's footsteps. Like, I guess he has to play for the Vikings at some point.
Yeah,
In terms of the Steelers one, I agree. Like, I would buy that. I mean, if it come down to just Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, I'd keep Justin Fields. He's a younger quarterback. Drafting now, they draft 21st in the first round, so they probably would be looking at, I guess, using a second round, maybe third round pick on a quarterback. So you're not necessarily drafting a great quarterback, but maybe one who could develop and be usable once Fields is gone or something like that. Damien says Fields will be the franchise quarterback, calling
they
it
want to
now.
lock themselves into like 9-7 seasons. Yeah, sure, 9-8. Yeah, knock yourself out with that one.
I mean, look, unless he does take a bit of a jump, I don't know if he's going to be a franchise quarterback, but
I think he's a
maybe if he does, we'll definitely give
Yeah,
you
I think
credit
he's
for
a
that.
capable quarterback that can win some football games, but I don't think when the chips are down, I don't think you can put the ball in his hands into the playoffs against a legitimate team like a franchise quarterback and go win us this game. I don't think he can do that against elite teams, but maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll see next year because I do think he'll be back.
Yeah. All right, next one. We talked about Anthony Richardson a little earlier. So this one is the Colts will end their 11-year AFC South drought. Buy or
So
sell? Yeah, that's an easy sell for me too.
it
Yeah, there's not even like much to even say about it. Like, I'm not buying Richardson and the pieces there to necessarily overtake Houston. Or I got to be honest with you, I could see Tennessee being the team pushing Houston next year, based off what they do, free agency draft wise. I could see that, but Colts, no, not at all.
yeah, I just think Houston's too good for him, and I
Yeah.
think with the right moves, get a real quarterback in Tennessee, they could make a nice push to overtake the Colts and the Jaguars. I think all it takes
Mm-hmm.
for the Jaguars is somebody to kind of like for one the receivers have to hold on to the ball, and then obviously some slight tweaks to Trevor Lawrence's game. But I'd probably buy the
Yeah.
Jaguars overtaking the Texans before the Colts.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely see that one. Next up, Jaden Daniels will make an MVP run.
So
Yeah, I mean, it would be a lot to ask a sophomore
this
quarterback
like because we're
in a
We're, no,
yeah.
we're
Go
doing
ahead.
the
Go ahead.
same thing we did with CJ Stroud, right? Like CJ Stroud was supposed to
Yeah.
make this big, massive jump, supposed to become like a top five quarterback in the league. But next year, teams are going to have more tape on Jaden Daniels, and I think
Mm-hmm.
he's going to take a step back. I think he'll still be very good, but he's going to take a step back. I don't see that MVP run coming quite yet.
Yeah. Now, difference is, I do think mentality wise, I think Daniels is a little better than Stroud, and maybe he will be able to kind of stave off the sophomore uh, drop off a little bit there. But yeah, to say that he's going to be making an MVP run would make me think like he's like top three in MVP voting. I can't go there. But if you're gonna tell me like he's maybe like sixth or seventh in voting, sure,
I think
maybe.
top 10 could happen, but like I think
Yeah.
you're going to get like an angry and motivated Joe Burrow. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Burrow might
Right.
even be better than he was this year off of pure hatred for what happened this year.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes is a sleeping giant. Lamar, Josh Allen, like that's just such a tough list to crack. Jalen Hurts, who says he can't put together, because that's another guy who was like second in MVP voting before he got hurt, like last year,
Mm-hmm.
or was it 2 years ago? But that's just such a tough list to crack, and I don't think it happens for a second year quarterback.
Right. But then even with that, you could probably still have Derrick Henry, even some of these positions that aren't necessarily quarterbacks, like Derrick Henry or Barkley has another big year next year. Like I think it'd be a lot to ask for Jane Daniels, but if he's top 10, I think he's off to a great start. Let's see. Okay, Damien, this one's hitting close to home with you. The Bears will sign Trey Smith in free agency.
Trey Smith?
Yes. Um, he's the free agent guard of the Chiefs.
Okay. Say very specific by to buy that. Honestly, if you're a capable offensive lineman, the Bears should spend every single cent of their 66 million in cap space on offensive linemen. So I'll buy it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, if Ben Johnson wants to get that thing going, upgrade the offensive line, I think Trey Smith is going to be a guy who will be heavily sought after in free agency. So, I mean, I guess I'd have to buy it because he's going to have to end up somewhere. Um, okay, a couple more left here. All right, so the teams that they have taking slight steps back, because like I said, the execs said the 49ers last year. This year they're saying the Vikings and the Dolphins will take slight steps back in 2025.
Vikings, yeah, I think so. I think the big thing will be is if you're really running JJ McCarthy, I don't know if he can replicate what Sam Darnold did for them this year. So I think they
Mm-hmm.
will take a slight step back. You say the Dolphins?
Yep.
Oh, I was never high on the Dolphins. Yeah, I'll buy all that stock. They stink.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm mine as well. And I think the Dolphins could be a last place team in the AFC East next year.
And that's saying a lot considering we're going to be going back to the days of the Jets not having a quarterback. But the funny part is,
Mm-hmm.
I think they very well could be. I think last
Yep.
next year is Mike McDaniel's last year in Miami.
Yep. He definitely should be on the hot seat. Davian making a plea. Let the Vikings fall to
Yeah,
the
and plus
basics.
you can't really get. You're going to have to take a step back off a 14-win season.
Exactly.
Like the Lions
Yeah.
are going to take a step back too. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think the Packers can replicate what they did this year, and I think the Bears are
Mm-hmm.
going to take a step forward.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's a division next year where you're looking at maybe your division winner being not 14, 15 wins, but maybe 11, 12. Because like you said, Bears improve, those top two teams come back to earth, and Green Bay kind of keeps what they are doing. Yeah, I could see
So
that.
yeah, because we went from 9 wins to 11 wins, and we don't have anybody important hitting free agency this year. So yeah, I think Lions and Vikings both take a step back. I was out on Tua before the concussions. That man just stinks.
Okay. Next up, DK Metcalf will be traded from the Seahawks to the Chargers.
Sell. I don't think the Seahawks move on from DK, but I do buy the
Okay.
Chargers going after another weapon on the outside.
Yes. They need to. Like Lad McConkey, good. Quentin Johnston, look, all off season, like you give him the remember the Titans treatment. He wakes up from bed, football in his hand. Going down the street, football in his hand, like that guy. Like he can get open, but if you can't catch the ball, what good are
I'm
you? Like jug machine outside his front door. The minute he opens the door,
I'm
fire
not
one
even
at him. If he drops it, he goes back inside,
not
comes
even
back
putting
out.
it outside his door, just right in his room, firing him right over his bed.
Right. He's going to sleep. You throw a football at him. If he catches it, good night. If not, nope, staying up. Packers can have Mercedes
I would
Lewis
take
back.
Mercedes
You
Lewis
know?
back. I think Mercedes is just old, but I think he's a great veteran
Yes.
presence. So I would take him back.
Okay.
So because we wouldn't need to
Um,
rely on him for anything. Our tight end position set. So him back as our third or fourth string tight end, I'm okay with it.
yeah. Um, I'm also going to sell the DK Metcalf one. I do know that the Seahawks, I know there's rumblings like to try to find a way to move him out, but I don't know if the Chargers will ultimately be the destination. All right, last one, and then we'll get out of here. Tyreek Hill will be traded from the Dolphins to the Patriots.
Whew.
Buy or
Dolphins
sell.
to the Patriots. You know what? I'm gonna say sell. I don't think they'll. I don't think they'll make that trade. I do think Tyreek Hill will be on the move, but I think the Patriots are smarter than that. So I'm gonna go sell.
I think Patriots fans would love the idea of Tyreek Hill, obviously using the speed that he still has and getting open with Drake May. But yeah, I agree. I don't. One, I think it's I think these like in division trades are always risky. We saw a bunch of them last offseason. So I don't know if the Dolphins will necessarily want to do business with the Patriots anyway. But I agree. I think Tyreek Hill is probably on the move. I don't know. I don't know where he ends up, but yeah, I'm gonna sell that one as well. And yeah, that's the last NFL exec prediction. I guess we'll see what they hit on. Like if they hit on half of those, I feel like they're doing a good job. But yeah, we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, we're getting to that point. That's all we have in the show. Brett, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, no, it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this again next week. Excited to talk about whatever happens on Championship Sunday.
Yep, that's obviously what we will talk about. We'll also talk about um, more of the coaching hires. We'll probably talk some more unrivaled as the league continues to try to grow its brand. Damien, I guess will be the last comment of the night. Don't see that happening. One, because Kraft is an idiot. Okay, once again, coming at my team like that. And two, Hill is retiring after next season, so why
I
even
think he
try?
meant isn't an idiot. I'll give him credit there. I definitely see the typo.
Oh, okay. Let's hope so, because
I'll say, yeah,
Damien,
like paying big money for 30-year-old Tyreek Hill, who you can clearly tell is on the decline. Not to mention,
yeah.
the NFL now has so much talent coming at the wide receiver position out of the draft
Yep.
and just in general. Like, if I'm the Patriots, are we sure Tyreek Hill would be worth the big contract? Like, probably not. Like, you could
Yeah.
probably sign two or three guys that for the money that you'd
Mm-hmm.
sign for Tyreek Hill for, and they'd make a much bigger impact.
Yeah. I mean, look, T. Higgins will be on the market. There's going to be some other wide receivers maybe you could get in a trade. And then also, like you said, with the college game and some of these wide receivers that are out there, like you could draft one and yeah, don't need to deal with the Tyreek Hill headache. I wouldn't want him in New England, so yeah. But yeah, so that's all we got. Hopefully, you guys come back next week, and obviously before uh, ending this, hopefully you gave us a like and enjoyed it. And if you are new to the channel, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you follow and subscribe Integrity Sports Network so you get notified when our other shows go live as well. But make sure you come back next week for more of the On the Ball podcast. We're here 7 o'clock, so make sure you're here 6:55 waiting for us, and we'll have more to discuss. See, I knew it. He was saying he was an idiot. He didn't mean to say isn't. Uh, all right, Damien. Damien's just trying to put out everybody's dirt
I
on
will
him.
say, coming after an ownership group when you're the Chicago Bears is crazy.
That's wild talk. Yeah. Damien. Well, look, Damien. We hope you're back in the chat as well next week. Always love talking to you, Damien.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so for myself and Brett, you all enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll be back to talk about it all next week, Tuesday.